Iran's president is not the man you think he is. On paper, he runs the country. In reality, the person with the title President of Iran is more like a highly visible manager in a system he doesn't truly control. The real power sits somewhere else, behind closed doors, inside an office you almost never see, wrapped around one name: Khamenei. If you only look at the stage, Iran can fool you. There's a president, elections, campaigns, televised debates, ministers, parliament, the full theatre of a modern republic. From a distance, it looks like the president should be the final boss, the way he would be in France or the US. But Iran was deliberately built after the 1979 revolution to stop any elected leader from becoming that powerful. The system is a hybrid. On one side, you have the elected institutions, president, parliament, cabinet. On the other, you have the unelected core, the supreme leader, the guardian council, the revolutionary guard, the judiciary. The elected side runs a lot of the day-to-day. The unelected side decides what's allowed and what isn't. That's the heart of the power struggle in Tehran. The president can make appointments, propose budgets, manage ministries, and shape the government's tone at home and abroad. But he does all of that inside a cage. The bars are legal and institutional. The Constitution, the Guardian Council that vets laws and candidates, the Revolutionary Guard that controls much of the security state, the judiciary, and above all, the Supreme Leader's office, which sits above every branch. As long as a president stays within those invisible walls, he can move. The moment he acts like he has his own independent mandate over the whole system, the walls slam shut. So the question isn't, is the president powerless? He's not. The question is he sovereign? And the answer to that is no. He carries the blame for inflation, sanctions, and daily dysfunction. The supreme leader keeps the final word on war and peace, nuclear policy, the security services, and the ideological red lines of the state. One man operates the visible machine. The other controls the master switch. This is why Iran feels like a republic that isn't fully a republic. The state wants the legitimacy of elections, but not the risk of open-ended popular power. It wants people to vote, but only after the system has decided who they're allowed to vote for. The best example is the Guardian Council. Before a single ballot is cast, this unelected body goes through the list of would-be candidates and decides who is qualified. Hundreds may register. At the end, only a handful are approved. That's not an accident. It's built into the system. By the time the public shows up on election day, the real first election has already happened behind closed doors. That's why Iranian elections can feel real and fake at the same time. They do matter. Different presidents bring different styles. Mohammad Khatami's reformist language made people hopeful. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's confrontational posture hardened Iran's image. Hassan Rouhani's deal-maker persona helped produce the nuclear agreement. Masoud Pezeshkian's 2024 victory raised expectations for a softer tone and more social breathing room. Elections can change the mood, the pace, and the way Iran presents itself. What they don't do is hand voters the power to rewrite the fundamentals of the regime. Because the real sovereignty sits above all of that. Under Iran's constitution, the supreme leader is not just another politician. He is head of state, commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and the person who delineates the general policies of the Islamic Republic. He supervises all three branches: executive, legislature, judiciary, and has the power to approve or even dismiss a president in certain conditions. In practical terms, that means the supreme leader sits at the intersection of the military, the security services, the judiciary, state media, key religious institutions, and the bodies that can veto laws or disqualify candidates. If you want a simple analogy, the president is like the CEO running the operations. The supreme leader is the owner-chairman who controls security, ideology, and the board that can fire the CEO if necessary. His power is not symbolic. It's built into who commands the guns, who appoints the top judges, who shapes the guardian council, and who has the final say on what the general line of the country will be. A president can talk about opening up the economy, or making peace, or easing social restrictions. The supreme leader decides how far any of those moves can go before they collide with what the system defines as regime survival. That's why Iran's structure is a hierarchy, not a true balance. The presidency matters, but it is not the throne. The throne is the leader's office, and it has been occupied by Ali Khamenei since 1989. Khamenei himself is a good example of how hidden the real story can be. Born in 1939 in Mashhad, a major religious city, he came from a modest clerical family rather than a royal or commercial dynasty. He studied in Mashhad and Qom, moved in circles influenced by Ayatollah Khomeini, and was arrested several times under the Shah for his activism. In the mythologies of the Islamic Republic, those arrests and the years of underground work became badges of revolutionary legitimacy. He was never the most senior theologian of his generation, but he was loyal, disciplined, and politically useful. In a revolutionary system, those traits matter at least as much as raw scholarly rank. After the 1979 revolution, Khamenei climbed rapidly. The state was still being built, institutions were being created, rivals were being purged, and the Iran-Iraq war was turning the new republic into a security-first system. Khamenei survived an assassination attempt in 1981 that paralyzed his right arm, then became president that same year. For 8 years, he sat in the presidential chair under Khomeini, learning firsthand what it meant to be important but not supreme. When Khomeini died in 1989, the Islamic Republic faced a dangerous vacuum. The Assembly of Experts chose Khamenei as the new supreme leader, even though he lacked Khomeini's towering religious status. Constitutional tweaks lowered the formal religious bar. Political necessity did the rest. Once in office, Khamenei set about turning a once charismatic position into a heavily institutionalized one. He expanded the leader's office into a parallel administration, deepened ties with the Revolutionary Guard, and used appointments and oversight bodies to keep elected institutions within bounds. Over time, his power became less about personal magnetism and more about the web of institutions that answered to him. That's the system every president since has run into. Khatami pushed for more civil freedoms and a less securitized atmosphere. He hit the wall of the judiciary, the security services, and hardline institutions. Ahmadinejad, the supposed hardliner, later clashed with Khamenei when he tried to build his own power network and was repeatedly overruled. Rouhani secured the nuclear deal, but as the international environment turned hostile and internal politics hardened, his room for maneuver shrank dramatically. Pezeshkian entered office promising a softer tone and more outreach.
but early on he was already reported as clashing with the IRGC over how far to go in confronting Israel. Different personalities, same structure.
So who really rules Iran? The honest answer is this. The president runs the visible government. The supreme leader runs the state. Elections can change the face at the podium, the tone of speeches, and the mood in the street. But the decisive levers, the guns, the courts, the vetting bodies, the red lines in security and ideology remain anchored in the supreme leader's network. And as long as the Khamenei name sits at the center of that network, any talk about who really rules Iran has to start and end there.